The forest does not remember days or years. It remembers footsteps, whispers, secrets, and the soft pulse of stories that refuse to die. And on the edge of an old kingdom, where moonlight drips like melted silver through the branches, there once stood a manor sealed with bramble thick enough to tear the sky. No wind dared touch it. No bird dared settle upon its thorns. For inside, the forest knew, slept the girl the world had tried to forget. They said she was born under an eclipse that silenced the bells. A strange stillness fell over the land that day. Even the river seemed to hold its breath. Her father, a lord of great pride and greater fear, believed the child carried a destiny far heavier than her tiny hands could hold. People whispered that her eyes, though newborn and unseen, flickered like stars reflecting something ancient, something older than human time. They named her Aurelia for the faint glow that seemed to cling to her skin in the cradle, as if the moon itself leaned in to watch her. But the wise women of the kingdom, those who read fate carved between tree rings and scattered in the ashes of ritual fires, did not come to bless her. They came to warn. Their cloaks smelled of smoke and pine, and their hair was braided with threads of starlight and river moss. When they looked upon the infant, their faces curdled with a fear the Lord had never witnessed in mortal eyes. One of them whispered, "The spindle will drink her blood and sleep will claim her. And from that sleep, the world will not recover." The Lord, who trusted iron more than prophecy, ordered every spindle burned. Spinning wheels were dragged from cottages and tossed into enormous pits where flames swallowed them whole. Smoke thick as shadow rose into the sky, carrying with it the scent of burning flax and the slow unraveling of every woman's livelihood. The people murmured behind closed doors, for where magic is feared, resentment soon grows its own teeth. Yet destiny is a river that refuses to dry. Years passed, and Aurelia grew not only in beauty, though beauty was the least interesting part of her, but in a strange quiet wisdom. She had the kind of presence that made candles flicker when she entered a room, the kind that made animals pause mid-step and tilt their heads, as if listening to a song only they and she could hear. The forest adored her, the wind loved her laugh, even shadows softened when she walked by. But the Lord never allowed her near the village or the woods beyond the estate walls. Fate, he believed, could be delayed with enough locks and guards. He was wrong. It happened on a day when the estate doors were left open for a moment too long. Aurelia, now 16, wandered out like a moth chasing a glimmer. Past the orchards, past the old well, past the rows of silent soldiers who pretended not to watch her. The forest waited for her with patient delight. There, by a patch of sunlight and fallen leaves, she found an old woman hunched beneath the roots of an oak tree. The woman's hands worked a spindle of rough wood, spinning flax into shimmering thread that glowed faintly, like moonlight stretched thin. Aurelia felt an irresistible pull toward it, as if the thread held the echo of her own heartbeat. "What is that?" Aurelia asked, her voice soft and breathless. "Something older than kings," the woman rasped. "Come, child. Touch it. Feel what lies beneath the weave of fate." Aurelia reached out. The spindle turned. A whisper, not from the woman but from the thread itself, slid along her skin. And then a sting. A drop of blood welled on her fingertip, bright as a ruby fallen from the sun. Her breath faltered. The forest shuddered as if struck by sudden winter. Birds burst into panicked flight. The old woman's eyes dimmed with sorrow. Aurelia swayed, fell, and the world folded into darkness around her. But this was not the gentle collapse of a fairy tale. It was deeper, heavier. She did not faint. She crossed into a sleep so profound even time refused to follow her. The Lord carried her lifeless-seeming body back to the estate. His grief so overwhelmed him that he sealed the manor and abandoned it to the forest, believing the woods would cradle her better than his trembling arms. What he did not know was this. The old woman had not been mortal. The prophecy had not been simple. And Aurelia's sleep was not a curse. It was an awakening. Her dreams wandered into realms untouched by daylight, where the fey courts murmured beneath silver waterfalls, where shadows danced with dying stars, where ancient queens with wings of bone and starlight whispered her name. They knew her. They had been waiting. For Aurelia was not simply a girl. She was a tether, a bridge, a key between worlds that were never meant to touch. Her sleep was the seal holding them apart. And the forest, wise, lonely, and full of ancient hunger, guarded her with devotion. Vines coiled around the manor, weaving walls thicker than stone. Trees bent their boughs over rooftops to shield her from storms. Even time moved differently around her, as though the sun itself hesitated to rise and fall in her presence. But kingdoms are greedy things. Years later, a traveler knight, more wanderer than warrior, found the bramble-choked estate. His horse refused to enter. His torch sputtered as if afraid. But curiosity is a blade sharper than steel, and something in him felt called. As though a whisper slipped through the thorns and curled around his ribs with invisible fingers. Inside he found her. A girl asleep on a bed of faded silk, her hair like sunlight trapped underwater, her breath so faint it barely stirred the air. She looked serene, too serene, like a prayer someone had not finished saying. He knelt beside her, not out of lust or madness, but from an ache he could not name. Something about her felt familiar, as though he had dreamed her once in childhood, long before he learned to fear shadows. He brushed a leaf from her brow, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. No kiss, no claim, no breaking of ancient rules. Just a soft, trembling whisper, "Who are you?" And that was enough. Not to wake her, but to stir something. A ripple, a tremor, a tiny shift in the great sleep that kept two realms from colliding. He visited her daily, told her stories, brought flowers, sang old songs taught to him by travelers from forgotten lands. And slowly, oh so slowly, Aurelia's heart began to answer. Not in beats but in dreaming. She dreamed of him. But something else dreamed of him too. For beyond the veil of her slumber, an ancient Fey king watched from a throne carved of moonstone and grief. His eyes were cold galaxies swirling behind silver lashes. He knew Aurelia's destiny. He had waited centuries for her sleep to ripen. For when she woke, the boundary between his realm and the mortal world would thin, and the old war, the one humanity forgot, would begin again. The night's presence threatened everything. Mortals were unpredictable. Mortals brought change. Mortals stirred fate like silt in river water. And this one cared for her. That was dangerous. So the Fey King sent shadows, thin, whispering things shaped like sorrow, to coil through the manor, their aim to swallow the night's hope before it grew teeth. They slipped through cracks. They crept beneath doors. They waited beside Aurelia's bed, murmuring poison into her dreams. But love, even unspoken, even fragile, makes its own kind of shield. The shadows recoiled each time the night's voice touched the air. His stories wove warmth through the cold chambers. His laughter cracked the silence like dawn breaking through mist. And Aurelia, though asleep, felt him like sunlight drifting through eyelids. Something began to change. Her fingers twitched. Her breath deepened. A faint glow pulsed beneath her skin, like the first hum of a storm gathering strength. This was the moment the Fey King feared. He unleashed something older than shadow, something that had slept beneath roots and stones since the first terror in the world. It rose like smoke, like hunger, like a memory the earth itself wanted to forget. The night felt its presence before he saw it. The air chilled. The vines shuddered. The candles died. A whisper slid across the room, "Leave her." But he stayed. And Aurelia's sleeping mind, caught between realms, felt terror for the first time. Her dream shifted violently. Stars cracked. Forests burned with silver flame. Ancient queens screamed warnings across shattering bridges of light. Wait, wait, wait. But she could not. Not yet. Her fate was still sealed by the spindle thread of destiny she had touched. The night held her hand as the darkness crept closer. And though she did not wake, the entire manor trembled as if her soul pressed against the cage of sleep with all its might. Far away in the Fey realm, the moonstone throne cracked. This was only the beginning. The first shiver of a storm that would tear apart the border between worlds. Aurelia's sleep was weakening. The night's presence was unraveling the old magic. The Fey King's patience was wearing thin. The forest whispered warnings to the wind. Something ancient was about to wake. And it was not the sleeping girl. The night after the throne cracked, the Fey realm grew restless. Rivers reversed their currents. Trees whispered in languages they had buried for centuries. Moonlight dimmed, withdrawing into itself like an injured creature. Every sign pointed to one truth: the Fey King refused to speak aloud. Aurelia's awakening would unmake him. For she was not just a mortal girl sleeping beneath thorns. She was the vessel of a long-buried promise. Long ago, when the world was young and tender, Fey and humans shared the same sky. They walked the same soil. their laughter braided into the same winds. But peace was a fragile thing, and jealousy is a shadow that grows the moment light is born. A fey queen, consumed by envy of the mortal ability to love without magic, sought to break the bond between realms. She unleashed a curse of sleep upon humanity, hoping to drown their memories in dreaming. But the curse twisted, spiraled, and fed on despair. It nearly devoured both worlds. To end it, a sacrifice had been made. A child promised, a vessel crafted from mortal breath and fey starlight. Not born then, waiting to be born far in the future when the world would forget the old war. That child was Aurelia. And the king knew that if she woke, she would carry the memories of both worlds like twin flames cupped in her palms. She would bring back the old magic he had tried so hard to bury beneath centuries of fear. But Aurelia still slept. And every dream pushed her closer to the truth. The night remained beside her. He felt the weight of an unseen presence lurking in the corners of the manor. His nights became restless. The shadows whispered to him, not with voices, but with shapes that slithered in the edges of his vision. Whispering doubts. Whispering that he did not belong here. Whispering that he was nothing compared to the ancient things wrapped around Aurelia's fate. One night, overwhelmed by the suffocating presence, he stepped outside the manor to breathe. The brambles hissed as he passed, their thorns glinting with a hunger that was not entirely plant-like. Yet the forest allowed him through, parting like an old friend uncertain whether to embrace or warn him. The moon hung low, unusually red, reflecting on the mossy ground like a spilled wound. He walked deeper into the woods, hoping distance would loosen the knots inside his chest. But instead he found someone waiting for him. A woman made of mist and moonlight perched upon a fallen log, her hair drifting like smoke. When she turned her face toward him, sorrow glimmered in her eyes. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice like frost on glass. "She dreams too loudly. The boundaries are thinning. And your heart," she glanced away, pained. "Your heart is causing cracks in places that were meant to remain sealed." He took a breath that felt too shallow. "Are you one of the Fae?" "I am what remains," she murmured, her fingers dissolving into vapor before reforming. "A guardian of dreams. A witness to what was once beautiful before fear ate it alive." She rose, her bare feet hovering above the ground. "Aurelia's sleep is not meant to end by your hand or your voice. Her waking is a cataclysm. A rebirth. A storm with wings." He swallowed. "Then why does it feel like she's reaching for me?" The mist woman closed her eyes and the forest seemed to shiver. "Because you are the first mortal in centuries who has spoken to her with kindness. You filled her dreams with warmth, and warmth is poison to old magic." She approached him slowly, the moonlight bending toward her as if drawn to her presence. "If you stay, you will clash with a destiny older than your bloodline. If you leave, her soul may fracture from the sudden emptiness." He felt torn down the middle, his emotions raw. "So what am I supposed to do?" "Nothing," she whispered. "Not yet. Just breathe. Just be here. Everything that is meant will find its way." As she faded back into mist, the trees behind her swayed as if bowing a farewell. The night returned to the manor. But something else returned with him. A seed of dread. A sliver of hope. A tangle of both. He sat beside Aurelia again. The glow beneath her skin brightened, faint but steady. Her fingers twitched more often now, sometimes curling as though gripping invisible threads from her dream world. Inside her sleep, she wandered a dreamscape that looked painfully familiar. Forests mirrored the mortal realm, but every tree shimmered with hidden runes. Rivers glowed from within, carrying the reflections of fallen stars. And at the center stood a castle of silver and bone, a place that pulsed like a living heart. She approached its gates without fear, though cold wind gnawed at her bones. Something inside pulled her. A memory she did not yet own. She lifted her hand, touching the surface of the gate. It rippled like water. A figure stepped out. Tall, regal, terrifying in his beauty. Silver hair cascading like moonlit waterfall. Eyes sharp as cracked constellations. Wings folded behind him, not feathered but crystalline, like shards of frozen galaxies. The Fey King. "Aurelia," he said softly as though tasting the name. "Daughter of two worlds. Vessel of the promise. You walked too close to awakening." She tried to speak, but her voice was swallowed by the oppressive air. He approached, lifting a hand toward her cheek. Though she should have recoiled, she found herself unable to move. His touch burned cold. "You must sleep, child. As you were destined. As the worlds require." In the waking world, her breath hitched. The night stood abruptly, sensing her distress. The shadows thickened, writhing in anticipation. In the dream, Aurelia's lips finally parted. "Who decided my fate?" The king's expression cracked for a moment, fury flickering underneath like trapped lightning. "Those who understood the cost of chaos. Those who knew what your waking would do. You are a bridge, Aurelia. And bridges collapse under too much weight." She felt something inside her ignite. A deep, ancient spark. "I don't want to sleep anymore." The king's wings flared, shards of light scattering like broken stars. "Then the world will bleed for your desire." The dream collapsed. Aurelia's eyes snapped open, not fully, only a fraction, but enough for the night to see the shimmer of gold beneath her lashes. His heart stuttered. Her hand twitched toward him. Then the manor shook violently. The brambles outside recoiled. The floor rumbled like a beast waking underground. The air turned electric. A deep groan echoed from the forest, ancient and mournful. A crack formed across the ceiling, dust falling in thin streams. Aurelia's partial waking had triggered something catastrophic. In the Fey realm, the Moonstone throne shattered entirely. The king rose in fury, his voice booming across the dream-glittered plains. "Seal the paths. Bind the roots. Let no mortal breath reach her." Shadow creatures poured from beneath his throne, slithering toward the fracture between worlds. But the knight did not cower. He leaned over Aurelia, brushing her hair from her face. "I'm here," he whispered. "I won't leave you. Not even if the sky falls." Her fingers curled around his. Just that. Just one fragile motion. And with it, a shock wave of light burst from her body. Brambles disintegrated. Shadows screamed. The forest howled. And something in the knight's chest cracked open with a warmth so fierce it hurt. But the Fey King was already crossing through. Already tearing the veil. Already reaching for the world that had forgotten him. Aurelia was waking. The night was the anchor pulling her toward the mortal realm. And the Fey King was the storm waiting to reclaim what he believed was his. The sleep was ending. The war was beginning. And fate, old, brittle and furious, was unraveling with every breath she took. Nothing would ever be the same again. The forest held its breath as Aurora walked deeper into its heart, guided only by the strange silver glow pulsing faintly between the trees. She could feel something ancient awakening beneath her feet, a slow tremor rising through the soil like the heartbeat of a sleeping titan. Every fern, every moss-covered stone, every drifting firefly seemed to watch her as though recognizing a long-lost heir returning home. The air thickened, humming with magic that felt achingly familiar, as if she had stood here once before, in dreams she barely remembered. Thorn, walking beside her, kept glancing at the shadows with quiet tension. The further they went, the less like shadows they appeared. Instead, they took on the shape of memories. A cradle. A crown. A spinning wheel with blood on its spindle. Aurora tried to push them away, but the forest would not let her. It seemed determined to show her the truth she feared to face. A thin path appeared, illuminated by an unearthly shimmer. At the end of it waited a figure sitting upon a cracked stone throne. Not a monster. Not a phantom. But the exact reflection of Aurora, if she were carved from moonlight and sorrow. Her hair flowed like liquid silver. Her eyes glowed with the cold, distant fire of a dying star. Her presence silenced the entire forest. "You came," the mirror self whispered, voice layered with 1,000 echoes. "After all the warnings. After all the signs." Aurora felt her pulse quicken. "Who are you?" "I am what remains," the figure replied. "The part of you the curse never allowed to live." Thorns stiffened, and the shadows on the forest floor began to coil like serpents. But the reflection raised a hand and they stilled. Aurora stepped closer, her breath trembling. "Then why call me here?" "Because the curse never ended. It merely slept, just as you did." The word struck like a sudden chill. Aurora felt the remnants of the old magic clawing through her memories. Her long sleep, the thorns that choked her castle, the darkness that whispered her name even now. "You broke it once," Aurora said. "No," the reflection corrected softly. "It broke you. The spindle was only the beginning. Every time you dream, a piece of the curse grows stronger. It feeds on doubt, on fear, On every secret you bury. She leaned forward, silver hair brushing the air like smoke. And it has grown enough that it no longer needs sleep. It wants to replace you. To live in your place. Thorn moved as if to protect Aurora, blades of starlight forming in his hands. But Aurora raised her own hand to stop him. I need to understand, she whispered. The reflection stood. The ground trembled. The air dimmed. Then understand this, I am not your enemy, yet. But the curse is waking behind me, hungry enough to swallow kingdoms whole. If you walk away now, it will choose me. It will wear me. And the world will mistake the puppet for the queen. Aurora felt her heartbeat slam against her ribs. What do you want from me? The reflection stepped off the throne, and the forest reacted instantly, trees bending, roots slithering, wind spiraling around her as if she were the storm they all awaited. Emerging, she said. Two halves of the same soul. If we join, we can hold the curse at bay. We can keep it from rising. But if you reject me, her silver eyes hardened. It will not choose silence. It will choose war. Aurora's thoughts spiraled. Emerging meant surrendering control. Meant accepting the part of her that had been shaped by darkness, fear, sorrow, prophecy. She had always tried to be light, gentle, fair, bright. But here stood the truth. She was also the shadow that shadow had feared. Thorn whispered near her ear, You owe the world nothing that demands your destruction. But Aurora shook her head. If I refuse, everyone pays the price. Thorn's voice broke. And if you accept, will you still be you? Aurora looked at her reflection. The half that felt like a ghost, the half that felt like a warning, the half that felt like destiny. She stepped forward, slowly, until only a breath separated them. Show me the curse, Aurora said. The reflection reached out and pressed her palm to Aurora's chest. A violent surge of images flooded Aurora's mind. Flashes of kingdoms burning, oceans draining, stars collapsing. Shadows crawling across the world in the shape of a spinning wheel that devoured everything it touched. A future where Aurora's empty eyes watched from a throne of thorns while rivers of silver blood flowed at her feet. Aurora jerked back with a gasp, nearly collapsing. Thorn caught her. The reflection lowered her hand, empathy softening her gaze. This is the fate that hunts you. Not because you are weak, but because you were chosen. The curse was not meant to kill you. It was meant to claim you. Aurora steadied her breathing. Then I choose differently. What do you choose? The reflection asked, her voice trembling for the first time. Aurora lifted her chin, spine straightening as though an invisible crown settled on her head. I choose unity. Not fear. Not surrender. I choose to be whole. The reflection closed her eyes, and when they reopened, they shone with fierce, grateful light. Then stepped forward. Aurora reached out. Her reflection did the same. Their fingers touched. The world shattered. Light erupted around them, golden, silver, violet, wild. The forest bent and groaned as the merging began. Aurora felt every memory she had forgotten strike her like thunder. Every fear she had ignored burned through her veins. Every strength she had doubted roared awake. Her heartbeat doubled, then synchronized. Two voices becoming one. Two souls weaving into a single, blinding thread of fate. The curse screamed. A sound like shattering clocks, spinning wheels exploding into dust, thorns catching fire. The darkness tried to claw its way between them, but the merging burned hotter, brighter, stronger. Aurora felt the curse's presence hunting for her mind, its whispers turning frantic. You belong to me. You always did. You were made for the spindle. For sleep. For silence. Aurora answered with a voice that echoed across centuries. I belong to no curse. I choose my own life. Light erupted from her body, a shockwave that flung the shadows into nothingness. The forest roared as though breathing again after ages of suffocation. Roots burst from the earth, not to trap but to anchor. Flowers bloomed instantly in spirals of gold and silver. Stars appeared in the sky though it was not yet night. And when the light finally dimmed, Aurora stood alone. But she was no longer alone within herself. The reflection was gone, but Aurora felt her presence, warm and steady, like a guardian resting beneath her heartbeat. Stronger. Braver. Oh. Thorn approached her with awe in his eyes. Aurora? She turned to him and her gaze held galaxies. It's me. Is it over? He whispered. Aurora looked toward the horizon where the remnants of the curse dissolved into sparks of dying starlight. It's beginning, she said softly. Not the curse. Not the fear. But the life I was meant to live. Thorn took her hand, grounding her in a world suddenly too vibrant, too alive. Then I walk it with you. Aurora smiled, a smile no longer shadowed by fate, but strengthened by it. She looked to the awakened forest, to the path that lay ahead, to the future finally freed from prophecy. And with a voice that resonated like dawn breaking, she said, "Let's go home." The forest opened before them, welcoming its queen. Not the sleeping beauty of stories, but the awakened sovereign of her own destiny. The wind shifted as Aurora and Thorn stepped out of the awakened forest, and for the first time in a long time, the land no longer felt afraid. The horizon glowed with a quiet gold, the kind that hinted at the promise of a new age. Yet beneath that glow existed something else, an undertone, a whisper that tugged at Aurora's new, merged senses. The curse was broken, yes, but breaking a curse did not erase the scars it left behind. The closer they came to the edge of the woods, the more Aurora felt those scars like threads pulling gently at her awareness. Echoes of magic trapped in forgotten valleys. Shadows lingering where they shouldn't. Dreams that still remembered the taste of darkness. Thorn sensed the tension in her shoulders. "What do you feel?" he asked softly. Aurora let the breeze run through her fingers, watching the way the air shimmered faintly around her hand. "Something unfinished," she murmured. "Fragments of the curse that escaped the light. They cling to places, and maybe to people." Thorn's jaw tightened. "If they threaten you?" "They don't," Aurora interrupted gently. "Not anymore. But they might threaten others." That was when she saw it, the faint silhouette of her castle far across the plain. Its towers, once smothered in thorns, stood tall and free again. Its banners fluttered like they were relearning how to breathe. But even from this distance, Aurora could see what others could not. A thin veil of gray drifting around the highest spire, like smoke made of memory. "The curse died," she murmured, "but its shadow remains." Thorn followed her gaze. "We'll clear it." Aurora didn't move. She stayed still, watching the castle with eyes that now held both dawn and dusk. "It won't be that easy." He stepped closer. "It never is. But you're not facing it alone." She turned toward him, and the look on his face, steady, unshaken, gave her the courage to draw breath again. The merging had made her powerful, but it had also made everything louder. Every emotion, every memory, every corner of the world that still whispered her name. She touched Thorn's hand. Warm, real. A reminder that she still belonged to the present, not to the echoes of what might have been. They walked the long road toward the castle, and with each step, Aurora felt her power growing, not because she gained more of it, but because she was no longer afraid to hold it. The villagers they passed paused mid-task, staring first in shock, then in awe, then in relief so deep it looked like tears ready to fall. A little girl ran forward, offering Aurora a crown of daisies. "For the princess," she said shyly. Aurora knelt. "For the queen now," Thorn said gently, though his tone held a touch of pride. The little girl giggled. "For the queen then." Aurora placed the crown on her head with a smile that softened the whole world. But as she rose and continued her path, she felt it again, the faint pull from the castle, like someone calling her name from a great distance. By the time they reached the gates, the sky had dimmed into a rich twilight. The castle doors opened on their own, groaning softly as if waking from a centuries-long sleep. Thorn reached for his blade. Aurora shook her head. "It's calling me." The moment she stepped inside, cold swept through her veins. Not fear. Not darkness. Memory. Shattered wheels lying in the dust. Threads of fate twisting violently. A presence that had watched her sleep, whispering thoughts she had never quite forgotten. Thorn followed, close but respectful of the invisible line she needed to cross. Up the spiraling stairs. Through the silent halls. Past rooms where her life had been stolen from her. Until they reached the highest chamber, the old spinning room. The spindle was gone. But something stood in its place. Not an object. Not a shadow. A person. A young woman with tangled midnight hair and eyes like fractured starlight. Her presence crackled with unstable magic, the same magic that had once tried to claim Aurora. She wore no crown, no gown, nothing but the raw aura of a curse desperately clinging to life. Aurora gasped. Not out of fear but out of recognition. "You," Aurora whispered. The woman tilted her head. "The curse needed a vessel, she said in a voice both sharp and trembling. You refused it. It found me instead. Thorn tensed, but Aurora stepped forward. What is your name? She asked. The woman blinked slowly as if the question had never been posed to her. I don't know. Aurora exhaled softly. Where did you come from? I woke, the woman said, when you merged. I rose from what broke. I am what was left behind. She looked fragile, like a shard of a dream too sharp to hold. The remnants of the curse swirled inside her, not with malice but with pain. She wasn't evil. She was the echo of a spell that had lost its purpose. Thorn whispered, Aurora, she's dangerous. Aurora nodded. So was I. She approached the woman slowly, offering her hand. You don't have to be a curse. You can be something else. Someone else. The woman stared at the offered hand as if it were a foreign language. Her eyes shimmered, not with threat but with longing so deep it ached. I don't know how to be anything, she whispered. Aurora smiled. Then let me teach you. The moment their hands touched, light flared, but it was not violent. It was soft, warm, healing. Aurora felt the fragments inside the girl tremble, then loosen, then finally dissolve into silver dust that drifted harmlessly away. The woman gasped as if breathing for the first time. Her eyes cleared. Her posture steadied. Magic no longer clung to her like chains, it flowed through her like sunlight through water. What am I now? She whispered. Aurora answered gently, alive. Thorn stepped closer, still cautious but no longer afraid. What will happen to her? Aurora placed a comforting hand on the woman's back. What should have happened to me long ago? She'll learn. She'll grow. She will choose her own future. The girl lifted her gaze, filled with wonder and uncertainty. And you? Aurora looked out the window where dawn was gently rising again, painting the sky in colors that felt like rebirth. I will build a kingdom that fears no curse, she said softly. Not mine, not yours, not anyone's. A kingdom where broken lives become new beginnings. Thorn took Aurora's hand, grounding her once more. The woman, no longer a curse, no longer a shadow, smiled with trembling gratitude. Then I will begin again. And as the castle breathed awake, as sunlight spilled through the windows like a blessing, Aurora understood the final truth. She had not been chosen by darkness. She had been forged by it. And now she would choose, again and again, to turn that strength into light. The curse was over. But the story was just beginning. If you believe in forgotten truths, subscribe to Fairy Mystery, where every myth hides a living secret.